everyone. Welcome back to Paddle Monsters Race Director Series, where we go behind the scenes with the people who make SUP racing happen. Today, I'm joined by Linda McCoy, president of USA SUP. So welcome, Linda.
Thank you, John.
Thanks for jumping in with me. If you want to just take a moment and introduce yourself, what your official role is with USA SUP and what your responsibilities are, maybe it'd be a good place to start.
Oh, goodness. Well, I'm Linda McCoy. I live in Austin, Texas. I'm president of USA SUP, as John mentioned. Thank you very much for having me, John. This is fun. I basically my role is just trying to lead the organization and get it organized and recruit people to be on the board and for our regional rep program. And, I think my strength in leadership is organization, like the processes and things. Because, we're a relatively new organization and we've got a lot of things accomplished, but we haven't gotten them in an organized way. And that's kind of what I'm hoping to do this year.
Yeah, so stepping up from being a regional director, what was that like, and what made you want to go to, lead the whole organization? What
Um,
possessed you?
I think the love of sup is what possesses me on a daily basis. And I think you could probably relate to that. I started off just as a interested party when USA SUP started, and then they recruited me as a regional rep, and then they asked me to kind of formulate and direct and develop the regional rep program, which I kind of got that going. And then they asked me to be vice president, which eventually led to being president. And it's like I said, I think it's people like you and I just love the sport, want it to exist, because I think that, in the past years it's kind of declined. And, as a race director, there's a lot of things that I'm like, I wish we just had some kind of organization or some kind of group, discount, or somebody needs to figure this out. And that's what I hope, that's what we as an organization are hoping to do.
Yeah, it's funny because I think sometimes organizations, at least initially, got together to set some standards and organize for insurance and timing and some of the like grassroots early stuff. But now it sounds like just to be able to connect nationally is a from a community standpoint, because a lot of the formats. Not that they're set, but depending on where you are, if you're on a river or a lake, or your format can be a number of things. So when you decided to pull this together, or when USA SUP pulled this together, was the six regions, what was like developing those six regions like, and how did they come about? Were there existing organizations in place, or structures in place, or series, or like how did that all work out?
Well, it's really geographic. When we first set the regions, we had seven regions. We had a mid-Atlantic region in there. And the borders were a little bit different. And so we've this is our third and I think final version of the regions. We tried to make it where things would make sense as much as possible. There are some series like the Midwest Paddle League and the Southern Stoke and things like that that kind of don't fit in our regions, but we just had to kind of do the best we could. And like some regions have a ton of states, but they include South Dakota and North Dakota, which isn't historically heavy in the business. So yeah, I think we have it figured out pretty much. Yeah.
So how would a lot of races just kind of pop up, and then it'll come around, it's Saturday and everyone's talking about like which race are you going to? And then there's this new race and you're like, where did that come from? And nobody
Yeah.
knows who started that race and all of the conflicts and types of things. Like what would be the benefits along with just avoiding conflicts with local and regional races of a race deciding, hey, I really want to join USA SUP and be part of like, the Southeast region, or how would they do that and what would the benefits of that be?
Well, I think one of the biggest benefits of our organization is we really are trying to reach out and get information on races because, sometimes they're on Paddle Guru, sometimes they're on, racerun.com or,
On
you know,
sign up and all that. Yeah.
yeah, run sign up or, there's so many, or just on Facebook or just on the recreation center in that town's website, so we have a contribute button on our website where people can contribute. And that's another beautiful thing about the regions is we have really great regional reps, and they're kind of the boots on the ground, like Jeremy Nicholson from Iowa, who I think might be the only paddler in Iowa. He has so much knowledge about races, and another benefit of the program, of the regional rep program, is I love they're kind of a little family. So, Jeremy will reach out to Michelle Fights in Florida and go visit her and use a board. And I just love I know you didn't ask me about this, but that's one of my favorite things about our community is the people and how welcoming and open and like, hey, come to Austin. I'll take you on the water. I've got boards. That's what I love about our community.
Yeah, I think, when in particular, Austin, one of our mutual friends who passed away a few years ago, Casey, he was one of those people where he would say, I want to come to, Carolina, and we'd say, well, he had particular tastes in really nice boards and stuff like that. So we'd
Oh
get him
yeah.
a really nice board,
Yeah.
or he'd buy a custom just for that. And the same with going out to Battle of the Paddle or going to Austin or, any of the races, between, Texas and Arizona. And,
Mhm.
he was great because he could, I think with our sport and our community, even if you don't have something to lend, you're only 1 degree away from the person who has that board or that paddle or can pick you up here or uh,
Yeah.
we even I'm going to a race next week in New Jersey, and somebody wanted to buy an OC2 in Missouri and
Uh-huh.
one in Atlanta. And then the people, I'm sorry, in Charlotte, Charlotte found me. They're driving it from Charlotte to Wilmington, North Carolina on Saturday, and then I'm driving it up on Thursday, New Jersey, and they're driving to the race on so they can race. But it's
Yeah.
stuff like that. It's just it happens all the time,
Yeah.
you
And that's
know?
the beautiful thing. We all have board racks on our cars. It's like, hey, I'm going
Yeah.
to Chattajack. Hey, can you bring this board that I'm selling to this guy in Mississippi? Sure. It's just one more board on the car. Yeah.
It is funny too when you get into a parking lot and you look around and you're like, paddler, sup, VRAC, like you actually know your people, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so how do all the regional race series tie into like the national championship, or how is that all determined? Um,
Well, we're trying to slowly build a foundation for something bigger. We've had two national championships. Our next national championship is in Michigan. It's in Detroit and Wyandotte. July starts July 17th with a clinic and then it ends the 20th at the Belle Isle Classic in Detroit. Um, and so we will, we wanted to have some kind of national championship, but we want it to be open. You don't have to be an elite racer to race in nationals. We just want the community to come and race and have, a great time and have some kind of formal race. And then we started the regional race series, kind of mirroring, you know, uh, a national championship, but in a smaller, you
yeah.
know, thing. And we just started off small, like who has races, who wants to be, involved. And once we start kind of getting some good feedback from race directors, then we'll start, formalizing it a little more. But like you said, every race is different. It's on a river, it's on a lake, it's in the ocean, it's, on a bayou. We have a 6.5K or a 5K or a 10K. They're not all the same, and we don't want them to be all the same, but we want everybody to be able to participate in some way and have some kind of support from an organization.
Yeah, I mean it's not like you can make Belle Isle smaller.
No.
It is what it is. So that
Yeah.
loop around, which by the way, one of my favorite locations in the whole country to paddle is Detroit.
Oh, good.
That was one of like an early, I guess that first Belle Isle race. And it's changed hands since then. I'm so glad they've brought it back because it's, I mean, the water's like crystal clear, and the park itself is insane. It's like an old World's Fair kind of like atmosphere with like it's just beautiful. Food is great, so I'm really excited you guys are having it there. And I have a conflict that weekend, but otherwise I would have been heading.
Yeah,
I hope to go back there soon. I think
yeah.
is that is Harrison or who's running the
Harrison is our race director who is on the board of directors with us.
awesome.
But Dan Novak is the
Yeah.
historical
Yep.
race director. He's the race director of the Belle Isle Classic, who
Yep.
has partnered with us to expand it, like we did last year with John Batson, the
Yep.
old guy, you
Yeah.
know. And
Another
it's cool because each region, each race, each venue, each the way the flavor of the race is different. So and
yeah.
I hope that everybody comes and makes new friends and you know
Yeah, I think that's one of my questions was how do you balance that competitive side of the sport with the community, and what types of things do you have during events that can make it more inviting for new people. So onboarding, people that might not um, be in that competitive mindset, but really want to get out there and be part of this community and part of, I mean, you have five local 5Ks that you will have 1,000 people in a town run a 5K, and they're not all professional runners and they're not all going for the top spot. They just want to be able to finish their 5K. So how do you welcome those people and make them feel like they're a part of it?
yeah, well, we do have a 5K. We've
Yeah.
historically had a 10K and a 5K, and the 5K is for people that maybe aren't super competitive but want to race. And I hope that people that come for the 5K will see that the people in the 10K are just like them.
Yeah.
you know like I'm a avid racer, but I'm no Seychelles. But I get out there and I do my best, and it doesn't matter if you're first or last, you're still participating and driving and keeping our sport alive. It's fun. And that's, it's hard, but it's fun too.
Yeah.
So,
We always talked
yeah.
about the race within the race because, they like I have three people that in every race, I know that like if I'm ahead of my friend Greg, like I'm doing really well. And my friend Steve's always right in front of me. So actually he's a lot farther in front of me now. But there could be 300 people in the race, but I know where I am compared to those guys that show up. And that's my race.
Yep, yep. Your
And
race is in your head. That's me.
yeah.
Like, okay, I'm watching how many strokes the person in front of me is taking, and I'm like, okay, who's behind me? Can I hear them? Are they? So
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, really, the only person you're competing with is yourself. Like, are you
Yeah.
are you getting out on the water? Are you practicing? Are you training? I always say that if somebody beats me, they deserve it because they trained harder than I did. So
Yeah. And so you've obviously been involved in the sport for a long time, and do you think like what are some of the things about races that you absolutely love? Like like things that they like even if you use an example of John's race or another race where you're like I really love how they all waited at the end and they had their paddles up and until the last person came. Like, what are the things that you love, and what are some of the things you think some races can improve upon or use to up their game a little bit? Not up their game, but like
yeah.
make it more fun.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I love about racing is how different they are, like, and the challenge. Like, I remember the first time I did Chattajack, I was mortified because, the weather and, you don't know if it's going to be cold. It could be warm the night before when you're practicing and then freaking snowing the next day. And all the things about Suck Creek and, where do you go to the restroom? And I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? And then you do it the first time and you're like, oh, I could do this. So that's what I love is the challenge and, like river races and challenging yourself to go over some rapids or I'm pretty scared of the ocean. I mean, I'm not scared of it, but getting used to the motion of the ocean and not like having rubber band legs. But I think it's really important that race directors look at races from the racer's point of view. Like when you get off the water, you want water. You want some kind of drink. You should have easy food. You know, if you can't find somebody to uh, cater or offer something, have food trucks. You know,
Yeah,
and aid, especially in Texas. You know, have a place for somebody to get out of the sun, be sure you're medically, you know, supporting the racers that, you know, that you're thinking about. And that's what I said. Like some of the things we're working on is trying to come up with some resources. Like here's the basic kit for a race. Like so you don't have to reinvent the wheel over and over and over. You know, I would hate for a race director to have some kind of medical emergency and not be ready for it.
yeah, that's huge. And
Yeah.
our very first year of the Carolina Cup, we didn't have drinks and we didn't have bathrooms. And this little girl was going to the bathroom between two cars, and the mom yelled, "You suck," at me because we didn't have the bathrooms. Like they weren't delivered. Nobody thought about it because it was at a marina. And I was so horrified for them because it went from the, hey, we're all going to get together and race around the island to, wait a second, we need to time this to, oh my God, we need safety boats. And, now the next year we had like 24 safety boats and we
Yeah.
had mess on call and we had ocean rescue ready. But I don't think these new races, that they don't have to, like you said, reinvent the wheel and go through all of that stuff. So it's kind of cool to be able to lean on you but it would probably be a really good resource for a race director to have access to other race directors, you know,
Yeah.
through your regional directors to, because there are people like you mentioned, John Batson, who's run his wet race, so that's such a well-run race, top
Hmm.
to bottom, food, people, everything. Like, when you finish, the results are there. Like when you get everything is just, and everyone's smiling, and even when the weather's rough and when things are tough, like during the pandemic, and there was a challenge of having races.
Yeah.
They did it right. So that is going to be a really, I hope people watching this know to, be able to reach out to USA SUP to ask those questions because it doesn't have to be as hard or painful. And also on the other side of that, there are things you may not anticipate with a race that these other race directors may be able to help you with. But anyway, so
There's a saying that, you know, you don't always have to learn from your mistakes. You can learn from the mistakes of others. And
yeah,
that's the beauty of having community and having race directors as members that have met those challenges and also giving grace to the race director. They're doing the best they can. You know, the
oh,
mic doesn't work, the porta potties didn't show up. I mean, you just have to say, like, hey guys, porta potties didn't show up. So sorry.
yeah.
There's some toilet paper over there. I don't know what to tell you, you know?
Yeah, it's amazing too because in any race you could have 100 people or 20 people or 800 people, and there's always two or three people that will wear you out as a
Mhm.
race. And during I think the second Chattajack, I saw somebody light Ben, who runs Chattajack with
Mhm. Ben Freiberg.
Ben, yeah, just lit him up. And I watched him, and I'm sure there have been other occasions where he wasn't as, amazing as this, but in this one occasion, he said, "I'm so sorry that was your experience. And that must have been really scary for you. Here, why don't we see if we can help you with this?" And this person just like relaxed and I was like, that was like a magic trick. I'm like, how did you do that? And he said, in his line of work, he deals with people who are going through a lot of trauma. He said, I usually see people on the worst day of their life. This is a paddle
Mm.
race.
Yeah.
So this isn't always drama. And I remember thinking about how calm he was, and you don't meet the energy with the energy, like you don't,
Yeah.
and when you do, it's not usually a good situation, which, I've been in both,
Yeah.
but it is really a challenge to, to get all those things together, to be real present with your races, to celebrate the people that are there, because and also you get so caught up in your timing and this and that. So sometimes you forget to like say hi to everybody.
Yeah.
And you know, so
Yeah.
um so um uh are there any races that you've seen that just seem like they're just starting to explode that might not have been on people's radar, but like in particular, I was thinking about the Cincinnati race and how I had no idea how enormous that race is.
And
And
it is so fun.
yeah,
Adrian Angel, he is on our board and he's the new regional race director,
Adrian's
regional rep
amazing.
director, sorry. Um, I went 2 years ago and I had such a blast. I mean, it's huge. Like there are tons of people and they have boats playing music and shooting water cannons. And I mean, that's one I encourage everybody, like just try to travel to a race once a year and experience another part of the country or how somebody else does it. And, they had a big festival afterwards. And I mean, talk about well run. That one is really well run. Yeah. And you
Yeah.
can learn from that. I mean, it's stuff that you're like, oh, wow, I never thought about that. I'll try to do that in my race or whatever.
Yeah, it's really good to take notes because one of the things when you start a race is always good to do is like you have your pros and cons list, but you write down everything you love about the races that you've attended in the past few years. And then you write
Hmm.
everything that frustrated you or that you didn't like about the races and you do the left and you don't do the right, or at least try and make some and I think just fundamentally wanting people to have a good time and because you love paddling, you know what is fun. And I think
Yeah.
some of the races too that uh I've seen be really successful are the ones that there's something about breaking bread with people, something about having a meal with people afterwards, where
Hmm.
whether you're waiting for the results or having a picnic, Belle Isle had three food trucks last time I was there for that race, and we ate like kings. And it was so good. So, there's some things that I think so that they don't just drive up, get in the water, do their race, put it on their cars, and leave.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh,
that's the power of community. You can't have one without the other.
yeah.
And that's another thing that I'm really trying to promote with USA SUP this year is kind of the connection, like being the bridge between community and competition. We value membership that just the casual paddler, and I'm looking at ways that we can support them through member benefits. Like, typically our member benefits have been race forward, but there are so many recreational paddlers. I don't know if you've ever been to Austin, but I mean, our lake in the middle of the city is packed on weekends. And
Yeah.
maybe there's two people that race in that pack, you know?
I went through there
So,
once and I was blown away. I was driving across the country and just stopped, had an inflatable, and I paddled around and there were people everywhere. It was
everywhere.
so amazing.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess as kind of a wrap up, is there anything like how do people get involved with USA SUP? Is there anything that you'd like to say to people who are thinking about joining or race directors? Any kind of like message you'd like to leave with?
Yeah, I mean, it's really easy to join. You go to usasup.org and there's a join button, or you can do join as a member at the top or /join. We have a lot of different membership benefits that we rolled out this year, different, the basic membership, $50. Um, and, I would love more members who participate. I think that is the most important thing in our sport. And I always push this: register and register early. Like one of the things that we've kind of started doing here in Texas is really talking about the first 10 people that joined, because those are the people that are paying for your t-shirts.
Yeah.
You know, those are the people that are getting you to be able to buy medals. Um, but yeah, just join, let your voice be heard. I'm open to any criticisms, any praise, any ideas to make our sport better. any sponsors that would love to come on board. That's, I think, one of the biggest hurdles in racing is is funding it. You know, I think that's why race directors get a little burned out because it is a hard work finding funds to get your race going. One thing that I didn't answer is a couple races that I think are exploding are
Yes, yes,
Navarre Paddle Classic. It looked really awesome. I couldn't go. Olakai Paddle. I don't know if it's called Paddle Fest anymore, but anyway, Olakai and John Nipper's race in Oklahoma is
yeah.
small, but I've been every year and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's a really fun 11-mile race on a
Surprised it's
beautiful
not.
river.
I'm surprised
Yeah.
you didn't make it 1,100 miles
With dogs.
with dogs. Yeah.
um,
Um,
yeah. So, like I said, what we have a lot of great ideas with USA SUP. We're trying to be kind of like the central hub of resources and information and, just think tanks, and it's, super easy to join. So,
yeah. Well, I really appreciate your time and I really appreciate that you were so flexible with rescheduling with some stuff that went on. So thank you with that.
yeah.
And everybody who's watching, please, join USA SUP, get involved with the 6 regions. Like Linda said, go ahead and register for some races and let them know you're coming. And also don't be afraid to if you want to go to a race, but you don't really know how are you going to get there? How are you going to get equipment? Throw it out there on Facebook to the race directors, to on Paddle Monster. Again, you could join the Paddle Monster also because we have a community of people that are traveling around supporting each other at training. But basically, like if you need a board or a paddle, and that's your limiting factor with going to a race. If you want to go to Detroit, if you want to go to Hilton Head, if you want to go to, Austin, all you have to do is throw it out there. And there are people with boards and paddles, and especially within USA SUP and their organization, they're so community based. They'll find you a board. They'll maybe find you a couch, maybe up at the airport. There's
Yeah.
plenty of ways to get there. So,
Yeah.
so thanks again. I'm gonna include all the information what we talked about in the notes, and everyone again, head over to USA SUP and join if you can, and we'll have updates after some of these big events. Sound good?
Awesome. And thank you so much, John. It's been I know you've been in this sport for a long, long time, just like I have. And it's really nice to collaborate and you're a big organization. We're
Yeah,
hopefully up and coming, and it's really nice to work together. And I really appreciate the time you spent with me today.
yeah, it's cool. I think there's enough. It's a big sport in a big world, and we're all just trying to do the same, like just build a community and connect with each other. So I think we can all really we all play really nice together. So I
Yeah.
think it's really
We
good.
all support each other. Yeah.
Good
That's
stuff.
really
So
nice. Yeah.
I wish you the best and have a
Thank
great
you.
day, and thanks so much again.
Okay. Thank you.
All
Y'all have
right.
a good day.